Hi, and welcome to episode 21. What is a book dummy?
Hi. In this episode, we're going to talk about book dummies, what they are, how we do them. Before starting on this journey, I had never heard the term book dummy, no idea what it was. So I had to do a lot of Googling. Um, so in this one, we're going to go into detail so that you're not as lost as we were.
Yeah, hopefully you can shed some light on this subject.
Yeah.
So Olga, what have you been up to?
Yeah, before we begin, we should I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I might cough a few times. Um, we just went through a whole thing with COVID in this house. Everybody got sick for a while, I think, and I'm going to do it now. Excuse me. And for a while here, the household was being handled by teenagers, two dogs, and a bird. And we were out. My husband and I got really, really sick. Um, and I thought we got better, but then we kind of still kind of fighting this cold thing. I have no idea. But
But
and we're vaccinated and all that, and we still got sick.
my husband and I were just saying the same thing that we got. So we had it right before my husband and I got it right before Olga had it. We do not live close to each
Not
other
even
either.
close.
That's what's weird. It's like almost like we transferred it through the computer. But we got better, and then about like a few days to a week later, we both had a cough again. So it was like it was cut, but I didn't have a fever or anything the second time. It's almost like it was like a came in, like we thought, oh, are we sick again? I woke up with a stuffy nose. I had a sore throat. I was like, what is going on? And I thought maybe it was allergy. I'm like, maybe it's allergies. It's not allergies. I don't get a sore throat with allergies. What
Right.
if
Yeah.
but I didn't that lasted for a couple days. And then I still keep having kind of a stuffy and a real sensitive, like my throat is sensitive, like I need to cough still. It just
Oh.
lingered. This one lingers, I
We
think.
got those antiviral medicines. They gave them to us at urgent care. And maybe that's just too much info. But as soon as I finished them, oh my goodness, they had a horrible taste in my mouth. It was just like, ugh, mute this, but if you don't like to hear it, but to me it was like zombie vomit. I hated it. It was so nasty. I couldn't stand it. And I was like, I want to quit these pills just because I cannot stand the taste anymore. I couldn't
Yeah.
taste anything, but I could taste that for some reason. But as soon as I finished the round, I got sick 2 days later again. Like
Yeah.
sick like a dog. So I was like, nope, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know
what
what this
was the
was.
purpose?
Yes.
Why did I put myself through that when I'm just getting it?
Exactly. It did help my husband more. But yeah, it's been an entire month of us being constantly sick. And I every time I'm like, okay, we're out of this, we're back at it again. So yeah, there's a lot of coughing. I have a cough drop here. If I need it halfway, I'll put one in. Um, I do have good news. The
Yeah.
the book yeah, the we did the cover reveal for my book coming up. Is called The Unwelcome Surprise. And the pre-order links are up, so if you feel like supporting me, if you feel like going to check it out, it's everywhere.
I ordered mine.
Thank you. um if you go to my website, I'm building, I think I'm building a lot of pages in there. I'm still working on that media kit that I mentioned a few months ago, but I always get distracted with something more fun to do.
Because
uh,
media kits are that's the boring part. Like,
it is,
uh,
okay, so I have all the information there, but it's so blah, so technical, black and white. It's just
yeah,
missing some creativity. So I'm like, well, I need my website to be more fun. It's
yeah.
professional, yes, it's all clean, but I'm like, where is my personality? It's not coming through, and it doesn't. So I need to, I don't know, key it up a little bit somehow. So I'm getting distracted with all these little icons and logos I'm doing, and it's just wasting my time. But I'm
Because
having
those are
fun with
fun to do. Those are
it.
it's fun to draw
But I
those
do
things.
have a page, excuse me, that it's at, I put Bongo, which is the main character for the book, and it has all these arrows of where you can find the pre-links and from whatever store you guys want to use. And So I thought that was kind of clever and cute. Um,
Yeah,
and
that is really cute. I
and
like
we
that.
should go into marketing soon, which I'm excited and nervous about. I printed some stickers, and it's fun, exciting, but I think it's going to be a lot of work.
Mhm.
Yeah, that you can see it. I had it. I'm like, oh, I'm not looking forward to that, and I'm very nervous about the book signings, if we're going to do some readings and all of that. I'm That's going to push me past my comfort zone, but I'm sure I'll get over it and just do it.
Yeah, in-person things are.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of wish we were still in COVID for that. That we could just do it on the computer.
I'm gonna have to do like human stuff,
Yeah.
talk to people in real life without a mute button, without an edit. Yeah,
Hmm.
I know. I'll get over it. But that's what I have going on. Exciting stuff about the book, working on some new submission stuff, and yeah, that's just it's been so long since we recorded. It's 2 months, I think you said.
It
That I
has.
feel a little lost, like I don't know where we're at on this. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what you're being up to.
I think, yeah, because I think I I don't remember if I talked about this last time. I don't think I did. Um, I went on submission, didn't work out. Uh, um, it was hard at first. I mean, I went on submission and it didn't get picked up, and that's hard. I know it happens all the time. Um, Looking back, there are a lot of things I would do differently in this story. I would like to rework it, but the topic it's on is a pretty common topic right now. And so that in itself, I should have paid more attention to. Just, like, I mean, the feedback we got was it's a common thing right now, so it's probably better to my agent decided it's probably better to wait on it, and then maybe rework it later. And so I need to work on something new. Um, so at first it was hard and I was really disappointed. But now, I've had with time, I had time to go look at new things and figure out new ideas and try to go forward with something else.
It's good that you're sharing this. In fact, this could even be a whole episode because it definitely helps that it's not always rosy and it's not always like oh exciting and it gets picked up and it's not. I had one also that we shelved. We're like, okay, this is not going through. And you say you can rework it later. Um, Most often though, you're gonna be so involved in other stories that are coming up and new ideas that if you go back, it's going to be a while before you go back and rework the same story because
Yeah.
you're already excited about new ideas that are coming in.
Well, I sat down, I had an idea for it when I was washing dishes the other the other day,
Of
and I
course.
rewrote it. Like that night, I rewrote it.
Good.
But I don't it still needs a lot of work. But then looking at it, I'm like, this is not the direction I ever intended this to go in. So now I need to sit on that. It's like writing is so much there's a lot of marinating when
Hmm.
you're writing. Like you can't just like with when you're drawing, yeah, you do kind of like step away and come back and step away and come back, but with writing, it's kind of like those ideas need to to develop and have some time to grow or because it's not what I was thinking before. So now I'm like, I don't even know if this is the right direction. So I also think too, like maybe it was just too soon to come back. Maybe I should have given it more time. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard of like just put it in a drawer or well
Yeah.
a file and just let it sit for a while or on the back of a paper plate like that story that is somewhere on my desk in the back of a paper
Oh
plate
yeah.
still.
Yeah.
uh,
Let it sit on the plate.
let it sit on the plate for a while. We'll see until it gets moldy. Then,
Yeah.
then we'll be like, okay, let's scrape this off and start all over again.
Mhm.
It
Oh
is disappointing, especially when you first get the news,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it does get a little bit easier.
It's part of
Mm.
the process. You can't. You can't dwell on it.
It's almost like the first time that the first few times that I would get like, oh, can you rewrite this story? And I just like, gosh, I don't even know if I have it. I barely wrote it the first time. You want me to rewrite it? Like come up with more words? What is it that you need? And now every time I get a rewrite, I'm like, oh, okay, and I let it sit. I do great if I have deadlines though. If my agent goes
Mhm.
like, well, if we can get a submission by this month, I'll be like, that helps me so much. Because then I sit down and I do it. And honestly, most of the time, 99% of the time, I like the rewrite better than the original.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's you see it differently and you kind of catch the stuff that maybe didn't work the first time.
And I think that's my problem is I do work really well with like I need a deadline. I have to have a goal to give me to motivate me. Otherwise, that's my problem right now. I don't have deadlines. I have to give myself my own deadlines.
But
And they
self-imposed deadlines
things
are not the same.
no, they're
Yeah,
not. And I just keep
exactly.
putting it off and putting it off. I haven't started my new story yet. I haven't, because I have other things I can work on. So I just work on those because those are deadlines. And so
Excuse me.
I need that motivation. I don't have it. So I don't know when my next story is gonna get written.
When you get really, really excited about a new idea, then you'll be look
Yeah.
for that one. Or if there's a new conference that you're going to go to and you want to have the dummy with you or
Yeah.
a pitch or something, then kind of you get excited there. Yeah, self-imposed deadlines don't work for me that well either because I know that
Uh,
I'm an easy boss. And I'll be
yeah.
like, I'll sugar talk myself, and they'll be like, yeah, it's okay, let it go. You can
You
do
got
that
time.
later.
You got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm too nice on myself to myself.
But yeah, we definitely should do an episode about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through it, but it's kind of like those things that there's a saying there's stuff that you can't get around. You just have to go through it.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
let's get into the episode.
Yeah. So I think first though we should cover what a book dummy is for those that have never heard like us have never heard of the term
Yeah.
before because we have a lot of people who are new to this that may not know what we're referring to. And I hear the term used in several areas. So like one of them is when author illustrators want to submit to agents or publishers, they'll use this term and for a that's the file they need to submit and it's just
Excuse me.
it's their book, it's a full scale book um digitally. Now in this day and age it's usually submitted digitally, not like actually like hand drawn and printed out. And it's all of the pages together with most of them sketched and then just two or three in color and the cover finish in color. And it's submitted as a PDF.
I guess the easier way to understand it would be as a mock-up of your book. It's a pretend um, sample of your book of what it would look like if it was actually done.
Yeah.
Um, when I looked up the book dummy, and this will probably date me, but there's a whole series of internet for dummies. They're like these books that they
Oh,
came out with that title,
it's
and they
your
would
book
do.
for dummies.
Yeah, and the first time I heard it, I thought it was that. Like, is this like a how to write a book for dummies
Oh, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
series? So I didn't know what they meant by you need a book dummy.
Yeah.
And when I would look up online, and I couldn't find anything other than someone showing you how to fold pieces of paper, and you need this
Yeah.
many pieces of papers, and you fold them, and then I'm like, but what is the
Yeah,
dummy? Like,
what's on
what do I
those
do on the pieces of
papers?
paper? It's like I get it, we're folding
Yeah.
paper, but what do I do with the pieces of paper?
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's like a rough draft of your book, not just the story, but
right.
the
Oh,
book.
it's mostly used by the illustrator. Now, yes, you can make one if you're the author.
Hmm.
And that helps you see the flow of the story, to see if you have enough writing for a book dummy, but in okay, we're talking about authors that are just, going to write the story. You're the author. Then if you use a book dummy, it just helps you see if you have enough story to tell, if you have the climax in the right section of the book and all of that. However, usually the pagination is done by the illustrator. So where an author would think, oh yes, this should be an illustration and this should be an illustration, an illustrator might be, no, this is a montage here, or this is
Yeah.
one full spread here, or this doesn't have to be illustrated. I'm going to illustrate a different story behind that story. So a book dummy done by an author illustrator is definitely different, I think, from what an author would do as a
Yeah.
book dummy.
And an author doesn't need to have a book dummy
No.
to submit to an agent or publishers. They just need their manuscript. So if they make one, it's just for their own reference.
Right.
It's not something they're going to use.
For an author, more of a book dummy would be more of a storyboard than an actual book dummy. All the way.
Yeah, yeah, I guess.
Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
Although, yeah, and the way and like you said, the way the author would plan it may not end up how the illustrator would plan it out.
Yeah.
But for me, working in self-publishing or independent publishing, I also use a book dummy initially with my rough sketches to show the author my version of like a rough draft of how the book is laid out, but I don't color any of the pages the first round. Like the first round is just my sketches, and I send it as a PDF as spreads, as 2 pages side by side, so they can flip through it like they would look through the book.
Right. And if you were doing a book dummy in traditional publishing, when you submit it, you have to color at least 3 pages inside and the cover. You can do 2 pages inside and the cover. I prefer to do 3 inside pages and the cover. Fully colored, exactly what you would want them to see as this is your art, because that's how you're showing that you can take it all the way from sketch to story to actually what a finished piece would look like.
And and you don't color all the pages though.
No.
And the reason you don't is because that will probably change if you don't want to put all your time into coloring every single page and then submitting it, because you probably will have to rework everything.
And that way they know that you are open and willing to work and change it. And you're not so committed that, imagine if you've done already a whole book and someone tells you, yeah, let's redraw these entire, 7 pages. You're going to be a little hesitant to do so.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a work in progress, but look, this is what it would look like if it's finished. It's like a whole map into your abilities.
Yeah.
And to carry it all the way to finish. So we should
before we continue, I just want to cover something really quick, because I see authors asking for illustrators in these self-publishing groups, but these are authors who want to submit to publishers, to agents, and they're asking for illustrators because they think that they need to have a book dummy. And it's really clearly, if you're an author, you do not have to get illustrations for your picture book. You just submit a manuscript. Correct, so if you do the book dummy, it's just for personal use.
Yes. So if you're submitting a book dummy to traditional publishers, it's because you are the illustrator, the author illustrator of that book.
Yeah.
You can do book dummies as if you're only interested in being an illustrator, you can do book dummies to show that you can do it. Take a story that is in a well-known story,
public domain, yeah,
and make a story out of it. Your version of Red Riding Hood or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That would be perfectly fine.
Yeah. For practice.
So let's go into the steps for a book dummy.
It doesn't start with a book dummy.
No, it doesn't.
It starts way before that.
Fold a bunch of papers, put them all together. There you go. You have a book dummy. Well, we start by, well, you have a manuscript. So either you wrote it or you have somebody else's manuscript.
Mhm.
What I usually do is I first read the manuscript and just make a notation of the natural pauses in the manuscript when an emotion changes, when a scene changes, when a location changes, when the action has changed. Those are natural pauses. So, for example, if I tell you, little Tommy went to get ice cream and he found the truck and he bought his ice cream truck. I mean, he bought his ice cream from the ice cream truck.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Sorry, yeah. Um, he then noticed that, give me another name, Maria didn't have any ice cream. So now we stop from the action of buying his ice cream to noticing the other kid doesn't have an ice cream. So those are two. So that's a natural pause in between.
Yeah.
And then so those are the first ones. Then you go back in. I go back in, and I imagine how the story would be told and how it would need to be faster, where would it need to be slower, and that's where you figure out your page turns, which we're going to next.
So but what you were first describing was scenes. So when you're reading it, what I try to, when I'm reading someone else's manuscript for a job, if I can picture those scenes in my head, that's where I mark off, when I see a change of scene or whatever, I mark it on the manuscript for that should be on a different page or in a different, vignette or whatever. And then, but now what you're going into next is page turns, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah, we're gonna explain what page turns are because we're gonna need them later on.
Mhm.
So, page turns would be when you're holding the action or the emotion in one page, and then you do your page turn for a reveal, meaning, I think we did a thing with Goldilocks. So, for an example, when she tries the 3 meals and she finally gets to try Baby Bear's porridge, and so she says, page turn right there. You hold that, like, so now the reader's like, well, wait, what does she say when she tried the third
Yeah.
porridge? Page turn. They turn the page, and then she goes, this one is just right.
Because
So
you're
that's
creating tension and or curiosity for the reader, and they want to find out the answer to that. They have to turn the page.
yeah. So when you're breaking your illustrations, you don't want to imagine that there's several instances in your story where you're looking for an answer. Don't give the answer in the same page
Yeah.
that you are asking the question. Yeah, so that's where you would create the page turns.
Yeah, you don't want to give it away. When I do, I don't know if you do this, but when I do page breaks on the manuscript, I write them in, and I'll write like page 1 and 2, page 3 and 4, or however they're paginated. And but I always do 2 at a time. If the art is going to be on a spread. If my art's going to be on a single page, I'll just say page 1, left, page 2, right. For me, this is for me. And then
Mhm.
I do put little art notes in there sometimes, like, if I want to remember while I'm reading it, just kind of like a first round draft with ideas.
All right. Yeah, so however it is that you need to do it in the manuscript so that you have an idea of what you're gonna go. What you don't do, however it is perfectly fine. What you don't do is read 2 sentences and draw your first page. Read the next one and draw your next page. You're not illustrating what you're reading. You're trying to tell the story, and you have to make sure that you have enough pages to tell the whole story, and that you're going to carry it in an exciting way all throughout. So starting from illustrating one page at a time as you're reading it, you're going to find out that 3/4 of the way you're running out of pages and you haven't even gotten to the climax of the story, or you run out of pages at the end, and it won't flow. It will be a very boring linear story that way.
Yes. Well, and it's easier to move page breaks around in a manuscript in a Word document than it is for you to sit there with sketches trying to move them around, unless you have Procreate or Photoshop and you could just like cut and paste things, but like it's easier for you to view the text and say, oh wait, when you're finished with your page breaks, I don't have enough pages or I have too many. Then you're like, okay, I have to combine text or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't put pages on the manuscript like you do.
So
I
how
do
do
that
you
in my
know how
story.
many you
I
have?
do it in the storyboard,
Well, then how do
which
you,
is what we're going to go
well, how do
next
you
to.
know? Wait, but then how do you know how many pages you
Because
have for your storyboard?
at that point, I'm not deciding pages yet. I'm deciding where does this emotion end? Where does this thing? And then later on, I decide,
How
okay,
many pages you give it?
right. Well, if I already know ahead of time, if I'm writing my own, I allow, like I usually try to do a 32, but if it just doesn't work, then it's going to be a 40-page book. But if from the get-go I already know it has to be a 32-page book, then I have all of these emotions have to happen within this section of the book. I need to figure out how to do it. So it will be like, okay, this is all going to be done in vignettes here, or a montage is what I call them. Like in a movie, when in the movie when you have the hero that is going through some big change.
Yeah, the hero's journey.
Okay, they're not going page by page by page. They show you like a quick montage with a song that excites you, and you see him exercising Hercules. I'm gonna post Hercules from the kids cartoons, and he's exercising and he's lifting columns and things like that, and you see all this journey happen in the matter of a few seconds in the story. So I would do that if I need to squeeze them
But couldn't
within
you
the
do that
pages.
in the manuscript also?
Don't, because I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it by the time I'm in the manuscript. I am just marking
Yeah,
where the emotions and the actions change, but that's for
yeah.
me. That's the way I do it.
Well,
I
see,
have to do it in drawing.
no, but I think that works for you because it's your manuscript.
I've always done it like
No,
that,
I'm saying like
even
if
with
I
the
don't,
other
no,
stories.
I know. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I do it the opposite. I know how many pages I need, so I make sure I have enough in the manuscript. But then I still move the text around once I do the storyboard.
Yeah, you
But
have to.
that gives me a baseline of what text is going on what page and what.
Yeah, no, I don't want to decide this is going to be in page 1, this is going to be in page 2. I know. I'm there. I'm just breaking. This feeling ended here. This scene
Yeah.
ended here. This movement here. I'm just like marking my beats in the story. That's all that I'm marking there right now. That page thing, I do it in the storyboard. Which, because okay, so let's explain what a storyboard is next.
Yeah.
Before we go into this. So storyboard, and they use this in movies, they use it in everything, is
In
literally
comics. Yeah.
boxes. It's just
Looks like a
and,
comic strip.
and we're gonna put some in our newsletter, like
A
so you guys
template.
get that a template, right? So in the storyboard, I already have my storyboard that is for a 32-page book for traditional publishing, because you're gonna show one that I even asked him, like, wait, you're missing some end papers, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, that's for self-publishing, and self-publishing we don't use
I can show it right now on the I
perfect.
can
This
share
is that.
screen. Yeah, so in self-publishing, you don't have to let me pull it up.
So if you're on video, you can go to YouTube and
Mhm.
you can see what we're gonna be pulling up. We're gonna be sharing some screens.
Yeah. Okay. So
All
can you
right.
see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is with from a client from a few years ago, but I do include my cover, front cover and back cover on the storyboard, but I lay it out as spreads as you'd see it in the book.
Yeah.
And but yeah, they're small. You just want to fit as many as you can on one page.
So the same thing in traditional, I do the same thing, except that that's when I know. So I'm like, wait, where's your other end paper?
Yeah.
And that's because the printing is different in self-publishing than it is in traditional publishing.
Mhm.
And this has, so it's the same thing. So I will have a cover, then I will have the 2 end papers, then I would have the copyright and title page, then the story begins, and then I ended with 2 end papers and the back cover. Same thing. You already have these little squares, and at this point, it really doesn't matter if you're doing landscape, if you're doing portrait, if it's a square. it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter at this point because you're not really working out your compositions yet. We
Yeah.
are working out the ideas of what's going to go in each page so that you can carry the story through.
Yeah. And um I just realized this did end up having 2 end pages because anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um
what you're doing here is you want to look at the whole thing. You want to make sure that you have enough pages that your story is carrying through, and that you have an idea of, like, when you look at it at like this, you can see if a scene is looking too close to another scene, if you don't have enough variety of angles, if you don't have enough close-ups, enough further away, if it's an exciting, interesting thing to look at as a whole. And you want to make sure, like, I see that you have that little boxes of text here and there. It gives you an idea. It's great that you do that, but the difference is you have to think about how much text is going and where it's going. It's just to get an idea.
yeah, and the thing is that it actually didn't even end up, this was the first pass. It didn't end up looking like this. But like you want to also pay attention to like significant moments. Are you giving enough are you giving your like a spread to those
Right.
significant moments to do you have enough
Variety of,
variety and like you said in the type of uh illustrations you're putting, like is it all 2-page spreads? That I see that a lot
yes.
in self-publishing. Well, I see it in traditional too sometimes, but are you doing 2-page spreads throughout the whole book? Are you doing single pages throughout the whole book? Are you doing text on one side and art on the other throughout the whole book? When you don't have, if you do that, then you don't have variety and you're losing a lot of possibilities in the way you tell the story.
Now I want to bring up how intricate her illustrations are at this stage. They are not. This is exactly how it should be. Super sketchy, bubble people,
Yeah.
stick figures. We're not worried about what they're going to look like because this is going to change several times, and you don't want to have to redraw every little
In
freckle that the kid
tiny
has.
detail
No, yeah.
in a 1-inch box.
So,
Usually these are like 1 inch, I
so these
think.
are called thumbnails.
Yeah.
They are like tiny little squares, and that's all we care about. Just a hint of a human, a
Mm.
hint of an animal, a hint of, like, yeah, they're going to be running this way. Just, it's more like capture the idea. Don't worry about if the character doesn't look the same at this stage. Is not That's not what's important.
Yeah.
And this is a first pass.
Yeah.
Usually from there, if you can see if it's not working out, then you'll do it again. If you're doing it traditional, these could be sticky notes. This could be just draw
Yeah.
all over again. Cut them out if you don't want to. Figure out if a scene needs to be moved, if a scene is dragging on too long. Put them together. If you're doing this digital, what I do, which is the reason why I don't have all of mine, I usually delete them after. Um, like after I'm done with the book, or I need, or somewhere in some sort of page lost.
Do you move it all
Um,
because you move it all around?
I Once I have it, I take it and I put it in each page so that I
Mm-hmm.
know where I'm at, but I don't take the drawing and enlarge it. I go into, because it doesn't, because what I have here, or what you have here, is not really the illustration.
Yeah.
It's the idea of, it's kind of like just saying, okay, I'm looking at you have two characters on a couch, and it's like, okay, it's just two characters on the couch. There's like the mom is hugging the kid, and just enough stuff to say living room. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. But that doesn't mean that in the final it's going to be like the lamp is going to be in the middle of the page like this. The book is going to, no. So it doesn't help me to enlarge it. I need to redraw it when I get there. But so
Mm-hmm.
I keep the entire storyboard tiny and the corner of my illustration so that
Oh,
I
you
can,
bring the whole thing in for every
yeah,
page, not
I
just that
do.
page. Oh,
That is,
okay. Or
yeah,
not,
so that
that's
I
the
can
two
see the
pages.
flow.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
That way I get to see the same flow, and I'd be like, oh yes, the page before had this.
no, that's a good
And
idea. Yeah, I don't do that. I bring in that small section of the pages. I like crop it out and bring it
but
over. But I
this is
never
the
thought
reason
bring the whole
for
thing.
doing it. I don't know if my cursor shows. I hope my cursor will
No, it
show.
doesn't.
It
It
wouldn't.
doesn't.
Okay. So you see where the ballerinas are going down from left to right
Yeah.
towards the middle. And then the girl is holding the picture frame and her arms are in the opposite. So that makes like a V. So then I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, on the next page, I want the illustration to start from the top so that it kind of flows. It has so that it has some sort of movement to it. So when
Mhm.
you know, this is just little details like that you'll do as you do them over and over again that I figure out here as I'm doing it.
Mhm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Um, so this was your first pass,
Yeah, it
and
ended up being like I think can you see my cursor?
yeah, I
Yeah.
can. I don't know if it'll be in the recording, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The one on the left down here where yeah, the one with the ballerinas, I think ended up being 2 pages. No.
I'm sorry, I just realized we're in a podcast, so
If you look down to the left,
I just realized. Okay, we are looking at Sunny's storyboard, and oh my goodness, so
said
there's
that. I think we said that. We said if you're
yeah.
listening,
So she's pointing
I'm
to
sharing my story.
she's pointing at a 2-page spread
Yeah.
of a character sitting
Oh yeah, we didn't say what it
in a
was.
chair. Yeah, in a chair where she's gonna get a haircut. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and on the
And
next page is the little girl looking at herself in the
with the
mirror to
mirror,
see if she
yeah.
liked her haircut.
And that ended up being a spread because it was more interesting to show, especially in a hair salon, you want to see like all the chairs and like a roller it looked better showing a roller chairs and then she was just in the chair looking at herself with her
I
haircut.
like that better. And that's
Yeah.
and also for speed, and you don't need to show. And then she sat down to get a
Every
haircut.
single,
And then she
yeah.
looked, no, it's all
Yeah.
implied. She's already sitting down in the beauty
Yeah.
salon. The other girls are getting their haircut. She is already looking at herself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
You
know,
don't need
and
every single,
exactly. And
yeah.
that's what happens if you start writing, draw that.
So that's what
If you
happens when you
start
put the
reading.
page breaks in the manuscript before you
No,
go to
no,
the
no.
storyboard. I
That's
guess so, because that's what happens to me.
That's what happens if you are reading a line and
Yeah.
think the illustration that will go there. You don't
Yeah.
have to read a line and think what illustration represents that line, because then you end up illustrating what you're reading.
I think it scares me though to not have that structure before I come over to the storyboard. Because if I don't know, I'm like, well, how many pages am I going to have? Because in self publishing, it doesn't, there's not, I'm not going to have 32 or 40. I need to, I feel like I need to figure out the page number before
Yeah,
I
I
come to
know.
the storyboard so I can lay out my storyboard for that many pages. But in
Really.
your mind, I feel like that's so chaotic because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here and I don't know. I don't know.
Remember when we worked on Charlie's
Yes,
on
you killed me. I was like so lost.
and I'm like, give me the manuscript. I just don't worry about it. Don't tell me what page you're working on. Just tell me. Let's talk about emotion. It was an
Yeah.
interesting exercise, but it worked out. It
Yeah.
worked out, and you were able to push past this is the line and this is the sketch that goes with the line,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
get a
And
little bit.
what even blew my mind more is that you broke a
Oh yeah.
sentence on a page turn. I was like, oh, I could never do
And I'm
that.
like, but why? Why are you giving the answer on the same page? Where's my, hold attention.
The
And you're like,
sentence needs to
can we do
end.
that? Yes. You
I
can
think I
do
can
that.
stop. I'm gonna stop sharing now. I think I can stop. Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that was crazy.
I should be sharing now, right?
Yes, I can see it. And I see
Okay.
us. Yeah, I
I
see
see my
yours.
little beach ball.
Oh yeah, I like
My
no,
computer's like,
I
why
don't
have
see
you
any
asked me
beach
to
balls.
go? You don't?
No.
Oh, okay. My it's doing that little beach ball from hell. Going like, you have
But
asked me too much of me.
I like your storyboard.
It's not even finished. This is something that I'm like, okay, yes, I already know where I'm going from here. I want you to. Pay attention to this section here, which is page 26, 27.
I don't know what's going on.
You don't,
No.
but I do. And that's the thing. When you're doing a storyboard, it's not for anyone else to see. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about what it's going to look like. Literally, it's just circles and lines and going, the action is going that way. So this,
Yeah.
I didn't, you'll see some finished illustrations there, but
Yeah. That's
those were
from
my,
before though, right?
yes, those were my sample illustrations that I sent to my agent. Um, as I am now actually doing the dummy for this one, that illustration is going to change because yes, I drew it and it's this kid wearing this thing at this angle, wearing this apron at this angle.
Mm-hmm.
But just because it's already a finished illustration as a sample one, it doesn't work on my dummy because now I want to do that scene at a different angle.
Oh, in the podcast, I don't think we mentioned. Okay, I'm sorry. Olga's sharing her screen now.
Oh,
Oh my
gotcha.
goodness.
This podcast is a
This
mess.
poor
You're gonna have to go to
podcast.
the video if you actually want to enjoy this one throughout.
And she's sharing a storyboard.
Yes, and it's not even like finished. I didn't even finish it because
Yeah.
I've
I think
already
you were
like
just trying to work things out in this version, right?
yes, that's all I'm trying to figure out. Wait, where are we going with like what am I going to cover in each scene?
Yeah. And you don't you don't share a storyboard with your editor, do you?
No, this is
When you're work well, I mean, okay, so like let's say when you submit to a publisher and they pick up the book and you're doing rewrites, you don't share a storyboard, you just share
depends
a
on
PDF or what do you do? What do you
it
share
depends
when you do the
on
edits?
I think it depends very much on the relationship that you already have with the editor. If you already did a book with them,
Yeah.
if they already know what they can expect from you. Um, for example, it might just be a rewrite and just send me some concept sketches. That
Okay.
might be enough because they already know. Okay, I've seen dummies before that she's done. I think she can carry it through. Unless they want a specific book, full book dummy. This I wouldn't show anybody because
Why?
can
Because
you even make out
wouldn't
what it
they
is?
know what it's
Nobody knows what this is.
I don't.
It is a box with like 3 circles in it and a line going
Yeah.
to the right.
I
But
see
I know
Bob
what it is.
Zoom perfect something on like yeah, there's like no the words are like
There
chickens.
are no words because up to here I'm like, okay, this is when he thinks this, and this is when the character
Yeah.
thinks that. Do you notice what page would this be? 16, 17, like 18, 19? It is just this
What are those
corridor.
lines? What are those
It's
lines?
showing you perspective. It's just going like,
Oh,
okay, this is going to be completely zoomed in. Like I can see the distance. It's going to have an extreme angle,
yeah.
and the characters are going to be right here in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, and then you see how there's stuff coming in from the top. You cannot tell what the heck that is
No,
at all.
yeah, I don't know what those things
But
are. Yeah, they're objects. So basically, yeah, I think so what you did here is you're just using stick figures and shapes to block out the layout of the scene.
I am not even working out the composition yet.
Yeah.
I am just kind of like, okay, this is what's gonna be happening. It's like me at this stage, I'm very excited. I am
Yeah,
super into it. And you saw how it was when we
Yeah.
did like, oh, then you can do this. Oh, maybe you can do that.
Yeah.
Because this is where we are just connecting with the emotional part of the story. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I want the reader to see this.
Mhm.
And this is the moment where the character is just like, oh, it's all doom. I'm gonna, this is it. This is the end of the world. And I'm like, how can you show that
Mhm.
in an illustration? What angle would it be best? Or maybe it can be like this. So page 22, 23 is when he's running away from these things. He's running towards the viewer. I knew I wanted that scene from the beginning.
Mhm.
Now, when I drew this, it was a concept sketch. So I am bringing it in here just to let me know this is where I want this scene.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take this and expand it because it's not even going to fit in
For those listening, sorry.
Oh my
it's
goodness,
a
that's right. We're
little
doing a
boy.
podcast.
I know. anything. There's a little boy running and there's balls coming from behind him and he's running at the reader. It's a great perspective because it feels like he's rushing at you. But what I noticed is that your concept sketch would fit well on a single page, but it's gonna be you're gonna have to you're just gonna have to adjust it to fit on a two-page spread so it's more impactful.
And
You're
that's
gonna have
why,
to
yeah.
figure out how to maneuver him because right now he falls in between the gutter and he would be cut in half. So you just have to figure out what page he's gonna go on and where all the balls will go that are bouncing after him.
And that's why I'm telling you, I would never take a
Yeah,
drawing that a sketch that I did in what do you call this, in the storyboard, and
yeah.
expand that and try to use that in my final.
Well,
So
I share my storyboard with the
yeah.
author. In some cases that works really well. But sometimes it's hard for them to interpret. I mean, mine is a lot more finished than just and that's why, because I feel like I'm kind of like giving them a because especially first time authors don't understand page breaks. They don't understand, that you're reading the book 2 pages at a time, that you have to have pages side by side, I'm basically having to introduce the whole book this way. And sometimes my hope is that seeing it in a storyboard form gives them a insight into that. But
Well, you're not showing them this one. This
no, I
is
have
like
to
a
finish
first
it more.
pass just to figure out for me where I'm going to do the
Yeah.
page breaks, where I'm going to, and so you notice how it's not even finished. So
Yeah.
this one is not one that I had,
Yeah.
completely gone with.
Yeah.
But when you're saying, like, for example, when I was telling you that I would not take this illustration, even though it's finished and I worked on it and it's just like, and I like it, I wouldn't just grab that and make it fit into my page, because when you do that, it's not going to work for the layout. I don't even know if
Yeah.
this book, really, if it's going to be
What size the pages are. Yeah.
right. I'm not really sure what if I ended up changing another scene, and I don't want to do all the angles being from the same one. All of that stuff is not really figured out yet, but I put it there. But
Yeah.
I will definitely redraw it if I want it,
Yeah.
if I really want it, and it will stay like that. I'm going to stop sharing,
Okay.
but let me know if it stopped sharing. Did it?
It stopped. Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
Thank you. When you say you share that, what I would suggest
Well,
is
I share like
that you
this. Okay,
say,
so we just showed first passes for the
yeah,
storyboard where
yeah, that
you
was the first pass. You saw how
yeah.
rough.
And then so I do a second pass on my storyboard because I have to share it with I share it with the author. So
I
I don't
do a second pass too,
okay.
but it is still just as rough.
It's still rough.
It's just
Okay.
as rough. The only thing that I have reworked on my second pass is the correct angles, the
Yeah.
point of view, and the wow moments. I'm very clear on what the wow moment is going to be. Uh,
Mhm.
it's kind of like, and then there might be a third pass. There might be, I put here, rinse and repeat until you're happy. So you just
Yeah.
do these. They're so quick. And that's the beauty about it being thumbnails. That did we discuss what a thumbnail is? We're gonna get a question. It's like,
I
you
think
said
we
thumbnails and
did
we don't know what it is.
yeah, I don't know if no, we may not have verbally said it because
a,
we have said it. It's just like a 1 inch by 1 inch square or like a rough sketch.
a thumbnail is a super, super rough sketch. Uh, it's really just an idea of an illustration that you just go, okay, this is sort of a human here, and this is sort of like a
Mhm.
doorway here, or something like that. That way, you're not afraid to draw it over and over again. You didn't lose anything. You didn't invest any time into these drawings.
Yeah.
They're just super, super rough sketches,
Yeah.
tiny. You don't do them large, so that you're just like quickly jogging down the emotion, that the thing you're trying to get through.
Mm.
So when you do these, do as many as you need. If one scene is not working, erase that, do it again, figure it out. This is all the work that goes in before anyone else comes
You're
in to look
you're
at anything.
planning. This
Yes.
is your planning and your idea phase. You're not and I think what new illustrators what a lot of times what they do is they don't do a planning or idea phase. They just jump into full page. Although if someone's been doing it a long time, they may not need this planning and idea phase. But I think a lot of times if you skip this, you lose a lot of potential.
I think even, well, I cannot speak with someone who has years and years and years and decades of experience. I don't know how they do it, but I might not need to finish the entire the storyboard to know already what's going to happen because I already have it in my head or whatever it may be. But it is helpful. It is helpful to do this before you, imagine if you're like, that's what we said, like you don't start reading your manuscript and go into drawing your final final illustration. You wouldn't even do that on an illustration. Imagine having to do that on an actual book where you have to carry an entire story and move this character along.
Yeah.
You're what do you say, like there's a thing, you're shooting yourself in your foot if you're doing that.
Yeah.
You're not helping yourself at all. So just to wrap that whole segment up, the storyboard helps you to see if the story is flowing too fast, too slow, if you're getting to the climax too soon, because now you're able to see the entire book in this little tiny format that is probably the entire book will fit in an 8.5 by 11 sheet.
Yeah, that's always my goal because I want to be able to, I like to be able to print it out and like
that's
down
great.
notes.
Yeah, printing it out is fantastic.
Yeah,
too.
I like to have it print out. So trying to fit. So sometimes my squares are not 1 by 1. Sometimes they're
they don't even
smaller.
have to be straight squares. You can just freehand the whole thing. And so right here at this stage, you already know that you're not running out of pages for your entire story. Sometimes what I do is I start my first and my last page. So I know, then I back up and I go, by this page, I put a little notation. By this page, you should have already have figured out. The character should have already figured out what was happening.
Okay, so in your opinion, I mean, so when you're planning, where in the storyboard, where in the book should the climax happen?
The climax, the resolution or the climax? Because I see them as two different things. The big problem.
Yeah,
the big problem. Like, oh my goodness,
not
all
the resolution.
is going to end.
Yeah.
I would say a little bit past halfway.
Okay.
So like it's like problems, issues start to build. You start to go up a ladder, and then kaboom, the big problem. Like,
so you have at least 3 problems happen, or three
there's
things happen.
The rule of
climax.
threes is like a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
doesn't have to be. You can do 5, and like you can do more. It doesn't have to be, oh, it always has to be 3, but it's usually the rule of threes. It's just a nice number.
Because you don't want the character to just have one bad thing happen or one failed attempt. There's not enough build there. Because then you're only climbing like one rung of the ladder. You want them to have tension.
And then you don't feel for the character. You're not rooting for them. You're like, come on, you can do it. There is nothing to conquer. It's kind of like he went up the mountain and
he just went up a hill.
He just went up the hill.
He just went up a hill and he went down the hill.
The end. It's just like, oh, okay. These are for stories that have that arc. There are some quirky stories that are different, but for the typical picture book story flow, so I would say about like a little bit after the halfway point, you should be going to that place where you're like, all is lost, that's it, I don't know where could I go from here. And it's kind of like then the character falls down, and then you have to start. That gives you some time to rebuild and give him some wins, or start to notice that maybe this next try will work. And then boom, once it works, 2 pages, you're out. Like the last is like, this is your end, goodbye. And then it's a good idea to have like a little, they call it a wink to the author to the reader at the end, where you just go like, well, or maybe next time something else would happen. Just leaving something. You don't always have to have that, but it's a good idea to leave that. That could be in the end papers too.
I was just gonna say, so you can do it in the end pages
Yeah.
and papers.
So huge episode here, and I hope that
We may have to split this in half.
I
Yeah,
hope not, but oh well, if it is, it is.
Well, like we just covered. I mean, we the part we just covered the manuscript and page breaks, and now storyboard. That could be one if we want, and then
And honestly, that's the big part of it. After
it
this,
is.
yeah, after that's really
You're
that's for the
figuring it
big
all out.
picture.
Then
Yeah.
that's like the preliminary idea. You know, how is the story going to work?
If you put your hard work into this section, your book dummy is going to be good. Because you have done all the legwork before you actually start drawing. Drawing is the easy part. Drawing is what you do. You're an illustrator. You like to draw. So that's it. You already done the planning.
Yeah, the planning is your storytelling part. That this is your whole figuring out the story and how it works. Because authors, and this is why this is good for authors, because it can help them with their story, but illustrators have to be storytellers as well, and this is how we figure it out.
This is too where you would figure out where do you bring to the table if you're an illustrator. If the manuscript says Tommy did a fantastic job tying his shoes, your illustration of Tommy tying his shoes beautifully is boring. But if you illustrate Tommy's shoes with like a big flowery knot and just like shoelaces all over the place, you're telling a different story, and it becomes, it adds more, to the manuscript. And you're like, okay, so Tommy is doing a great job, but his great job might not be what you typically would expect it to be. This is you figure it all out here in this stage. Like, okay, this is the sub story I'm going to be telling with illustrations while the manuscript is doing its job. All right, so we're going to go into the book dummy, actual book dummy.
Yeah. And I mean, we kind of touched
3.
on this. We did talk about what a book dummy is.
Yeah. So you had said here that you enlarge it. That's why how you work. You enlarge your storyboard.
Yeah.
Into your actual page. You work digitally, and this is the way what you like to do. I go ahead and redraw. I keep it all together, and I redraw the pages.
Yeah,
because they will change.
But I mean, this isn't quite what I do redraw it, but I use that as a reference, and it's enlarged underneath, like as a reference, rather than keeping it small. But I don't literally redraw on, what I mean? I don't use that as my.
Yeah, you're not tracing it.
No,
you're just using it as a template to it.
Yeah, as a reference.
It's the same thing. I just redraw it there. That way I can kind of like keep the same.
But I don't keep the whole storyboard on each page. And I think that's a really good idea. So I can keep track of what is where.
It's a good idea. I find it helpful. I mean, that's what I do. I carry that, and I carry the maquettes. It used to be maquettes. It's not maquettes anymore. What do you call them?
Thumbnails?
No, the character design.
Oh, yeah.
And I put those in each page that I am going to illustrate. I just do this. I work digitally, so I just do it in each canvas that I'm going to do. I already have the character designs for each of the characters. Even if the character is not there in that scene, I still carry the whole all of them.
That's how I also keep colors consistent.
Yeah, and then the storyboard next to it. And that's it. That way I know who the characters, what they look like, what they're wearing. I don't forget, which still happens.
Like sometimes you
still happens. I'm like, all of a sudden in the middle of my book, I'm like, wait.
Somehow they have long sleeves.
This is where the editor goes like, wasn't the kid wearing long sleeves before? And I'm like, yes, he was. Now he's wearing short sleeves. I will change it. That is why it's good to have a lot of eyes in your book after, because they'll catch things that you don't catch because you've been looking at this thing for months.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
32 pages. I mean, 32 illustrations. Sometimes actually 32 pages
More.
can be a lot more than 32
I
illustrations.
was gonna say, even a
Yeah.
32-page book is more than 32
Yeah.
illustrations, because you have like spot illustrations, you have your end papers, and you have how many times sometimes you redraw a scene
Mm-hmm.
and it's no longer 32 pages. If you're going on 50 times that you've drawn this because
Yeah.
there was a change or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back on this. Why are we so
I don't
completely
know.
all over the place?
You can let's see.
Okay, so the storyboard, you can see if the illustrations are boring, if the point, if you
No,
need
we're
to.
talking about the dummy now. Now we're moving on to the dummy.
Okay, well, we said you take your and looking at the storyboard, you can see if the illustrations, if the point of views, if you're not changing enough, all of that has been
Yeah.
already figured out in the storyboard. When you get to this point, you are just drawing and just making your drawings as good as you can. No, you don't have to do finished drawings. Don't do
Right.
super clean line work. They're still sketches, but they are sketches now that you're going to share with someone else, so they need to be completely clear, understood. it
Mm-hmm.
it should not be like, is that a bubble or is that
Yeah, you want it needs
character?
to be identifiable as
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the character. You
Yeah.
don't have to have every page that the character is so perfect that you know it's exactly the same character, but it should be enough to know that, okay, this is definitely the same characters because I can see that the hair is long.
Mm-hmm.
In your the dummy that you showed, I mean the storyboard that you showed, the girl had long hair.
Yeah.
You know, she has long hair, you know, more or less she's this high compared to the parent. um
Yeah, the
she's always
children are
wearing,
smaller.
you're
Yeah.
always wearing a dress, so you kind of have everything there in a clear sketch in every single page, so you do your entire book is like that. um Now from here is where things get different for traditional and for
Yeah.
self-publishing.
Yeah.
So you can cover self-publishing and I'll go ahead and cover traditional.
Well, in self-publishing, I would share my rough sketches with the author in the dummy form. And then I would take notes and do edits in the sketch form. And then I moved to final line art before I color anything. And then I would color one page and share that with them. And if they approve of well, before I did that, I would have done I would have done color character sketches. And then I would develop so when I'm sharing the dummy, mine is all just sketches, and then I move to final line art, and then I don't color until we've established what every single page is going to look like.
There was
In
something else
traditional,
too. No, there was something else too that you needed, that you already need to know what the printer size will be,
yes.
all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That's what's
So yeah, so in independent publishing, you need, before you move to the dummy, you need to figure out what size your pages will be. So you need to know what printer you're using. You also need, depending on the printer you use, will kind of establish your page count, and also if you can have end papers or not. You also need to know if the book is going to be published as a paperback, as a hardcover, as an ebook, because those will also kind of influence your page count and your size, your page size, and it will influence your bleed, because in traditional publishing, usually the bleed is 0.25 around the edges of the page, but in self it's usually 0.125 around the outside edges. Is that what was your bleed, Olga?
um,
Do you remember?
0.125 on each edge.
It was
It was.
0.125.
It was
Okay.
the same bleed as what you're talking,
A self.
but you can always give more, like if you
Yeah,
need
you
it. So
can.
except that make sure that your gutter is all right, it's working good.
Except that, well, and that's the other thing that I have to, because I'm planning ahead towards printing, I have to make sure I leave space for the text. Which means I need to have a margin of a half an inch around the whole exterior edge of the page. where the text won't go past that. So I start that planning when I'm doing my dummy. I don't.
And that comes in because you are also the book designer. You're also the graphic designer.
But I mean,
Um,
illustrators should plan that
yeah, but no, they
as
some
well.
might not.
But they don't.
Yeah. So, and that's when you end up having to go back to find the illustrator. Sometimes they
Yeah.
come to you
Yeah.
for graphic design, and the illustrator's long gone. They have already finished, and then they're like, they have these pages that you have to fix. But so a book dummy. Let's go back to a book dummy for traditional publishing. This is
Like for an
the
agent, yeah.
idea for, yeah, you're going to show it to an agent, and if you're agented, you're, this is to go on submission. You kind of work the book dummy on a size that you envision the book being. So if it's a square format, if it's a portrait or landscape, most books are, I don't want to say the most books, but okay, the majority seem to be portrait mode. But it should depend on what you see. If your character, if it's character driven, is usually in portrait mode. If it's, we talked about this, if it's something that deals with beach scenes and mountains and more in the environment is part of it, then it's usually in a landscape mode. Or if it's like transportation, then it's landscape mode. And then you have the square format, which is always nice and fun, but not everything will be like that. It doesn't really matter too much because it's all going to change once it gets picked up. The editor will decide with you what the actual format of the book will be, and you're going to have to redraw it anyway for that. This is just a sample to convince someone that this book is good, that you can do this, and that that this is how you would do it if you get hired for it.
Yeah.
So you do want to color it because, as we discussed at the beginning, you want to show.
You want to color a few pages.
Yeah, which the 2 to 3 interior pages and a cover. It's when you choose the pages, I would recommend that you choose impactful pages. Don't go with the easy stuff. Show an action scene. If there's an action scene in your book, show that one. Show one that has many characters. It's kind of like when you're doing your book dummy at this point, you don't want to take the easy way out. Go ahead and work it and color that page that you don't really look forward to, even because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many characters, there's so much action in this page. You're gonna have to do it anyway. If you get hired for the book, you're gonna, and the page remains, you're gonna have to do it anyway. So do it. And even if after the book is picked up, you're still going to repaint it anyway, because by the time all of this actually starts, your style has changed a little bit, your skill has changed a little bit, and you're better off kind of like redoing it with maybe the color palette might change. The characters might change. I mean, there's so many things that are
characters.
You may lose characters.
Yeah.
Exactly, in the editing process. So don't be afraid to put the time into your book dummy and color the best you possibly can. It's kind of like you're showing your skills to the agent at this point. We're talking about an agent.
Yeah.
So all you want to do is make sure that this book, when someone reads it, they're like, wow, I can totally see this book done.
Yeah.
Now we have some questions that have been coming in about book dummies, and I think that's what we're going to cover next. We might be able to do this in one episode. We're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we can cut.
Oh, you know what though? We did not. Is this a question? I don't think this is a question. When you submit your book dummy to an agent, this is not a question.
Can you highlight where you're at? Oh, I'm sorry.
We didn't cover. I'm saying we didn't cover this. I think before we go into questions, we should just say that when you submit the book dummy, and I think I said this in the beginning, it's a PDF. You put it into a PDF format.
Yeah.
So if you're traditional, you're going to have to scan your.
We were going to show some dummies that we had print it out. So again, go back on camera
Yeah.
if you're doing this.
Yeah, we can do that.
This was more for like conference, one-on-one with an editor, one-on-one with an art director, one-on-one with an agent. You know,
That's
when
when you
get
do
those things.
physically need a something.
It's yes. It's kind of awkward to, I guess you could pass over your iPad or something and they can just flick
Yeah,
through it, but
that's
it's definitely not
kinda,
going to feel as good as having a piece of
yeah.
paper just print it out. And it doesn't have to be like this. This silliness, I did it because I bought a printer and I bought a stapler and I had InDesign. I don't even have InDesign anymore. I stopped paying for that. The thing is too expensive and I don't need it. So what for? So literally you could just print out regular pieces of paper and staple it in the corner if you need to.
What kind of paper
Um,
did you use? Did you use like cardstock or
a little thicker, a little thicker paper.
thicker than regular paper,
This is
printer paper? Yeah.
this what I'm holding here is
Oh
actually
yeah.
my original dummy, which
Oh yeah.
for the book that got published, and it's no longer this. It's no longer like this. You can see we have done the cover reveal. This is I think this is precious because it's what the book was originally.
Yeah.
So there's my little bongo boy. So he changed
He
not
didn't.
too much. No,
Yeah.
he stayed the same
Yeah.
because I based him on my real quick.
Your own bongo. Yeah.
My own little bongo. I'll change. I'll go like this. Look.
Yeah.
There's my little chumby boy. I call him chumby sometimes. So this book actually changed quite a bit from what it was originally, but this is even the title changed, of course. The whole premise, characters came and went. This one is like a very it's like a very young picture book
For young
for
readers.
very
Yeah.
very young. Yeah, and I never actually presented this. It's one of those that like someday I'll probably rewrite it, but yes. So it's just pieces of paper and it was stapled here. So of course I already figured out which page would go with which. Like you see, the spreads would not have been done in one page because it wouldn't have worked out. You don't have to do it like this. This is just
Yeah, that was that hard to figure out because I've never.
to figure that out. I took tiny little papers and I went and I just wrote 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 in each page. Like I went ahead and cut pieces of paper and made it into the book dummy and I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4. So then later on I separated that and I knew that page 1
Need to go next to
needed,
page.
yes, using
Oh.
the sign.
Oh
And I would
wow.
print that. It was a lot of work to do that. That's what I'm saying. Completely unnecessary. But I wanted my book dummies to feel and look and turn like a book.
Yeah.
I took the time. Do what you feel like you can do. Do what you need to do. Do not go and buy something crazy for. This is a sketch.
Yeah, that's a great
This
one.
was a room with lots of things. I love to draw stuff like that. But you see that the amount of sketch, like how clean, it's not super clean. It's sketchy.
Yeah.
But you can tell what it is.
Yeah, you can see that it, there was their toys, there are, and there's a closet, everything's spilling out and yeah.
So yeah, it's
You
clear
can
that what it is that is drawn in there, but it is not like super great, super cleaned out. And then let me see, I covered the cover. I colored, did I color anything? Of course I did, but which ones did I color? Oh, this is another thing you can do. You can shade if you need, like if you're just trying to communicate something like okay, this is going to be like a dark room or something like that. You don't have to shade everything. Just use it if it's necessary. For example, this page, look at that.
Yeah,
it's not finished and painted, but it is. I'm trying to say to the reader, this is going to be a very dark scene. So
yeah, so
there it is.
it's a closet with dark shadows around.
Yeah, so there's
doors.
like a monster that comes out of the closet when it comes out, like so I wanted it to be a dark looking scene. That's the only reason why it would be shaded like that. Okay, so here it is.
And that was a black and white page.
It was a black and white.
And then you went to a color spread.
So this is a full color spread. That's what I'm saying. Don't be afraid to pick something that has a lot of a lot of emotion or action to color that. You want to impress the person that's reading it, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I did for mine. You had
So
one, I think
did
you were gonna
you
show.
include, yeah, did you include the title page, the copyright page in your dummies?
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
end papers.
Yeah,
I did just like my fingers.
copyright, yeah.
And copyright, and there is, you don't have to do any
Yeah,
of
you don't
this.
have to
Literally, you could just
lotta,
go copyright.
you don't
There
need an
is
ISBN.
none of that. No.
Yeah.
I put, there's a thing that who told me this? There was an art director that told me about this. That you write, there's something that you write. I think it was a graphic design class that I took back in college. There's something that you write when you just want to write nonsense. It's kind of like a placeholder text.
Lorem ipsum.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. You see it
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
So that I forget where it is that
It's
I learned that.
Latin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea what it says. My daughter
It is.
speaks Latin. She could probably know.
Yeah, it is placeholder text.
Yeah, that's it. But literally, you could just write copyright page, just
Yeah. Yeah.
or leave it blank. The person that is reading this already knows, like an editor or an art director, an agent already knows what that is. It's like, okay, that's the copyright page. This will be the title page. And then I went ahead and go in.
Yeah.
If you don't know, well, you should know, you should look that up if you don't know how to that what is required in a book. But even at that age, at that stage, the book dummy, you don't really have to do it. They just want to know your story, that you can tell a story. Once it gets picked up, there will be someone there that will actually tell you, okay, we need a page that is going to be for your title page. And if you don't know, ask. Ask.
Yeah.
That's it. Just plain simple.
Yeah.
Should we go into questions or?
Oh, I can share mine really quick.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
So I have an example for a book dummy that I gave to agents. And then I have 2 book dummies I was going to share that I use to share with authors, because I used to actually print out every book and share it with them before we would finalize the files. And I don't do that anymore. Now I just send a PDF because it's just as reliable, as long as I mean, it works. It's easy. It's just easier. So yeah, I did that. I did a full, but so I had mine printed through, and I think I've shared this before in a previous
Excuse me.
but I had mine printed through someone online. There was a coupon. Yeah, this
Shutterfly.
it was
Isn't it?
either Shutterfly or Snapfish. I think
Oh, we
one of
should say
those.
this. This is completely
I'm not,
unnecessary for book dummies. We went
yeah.
way overboard, not necessary, but it was fun, and I love that we have them now. But
But you cannot print. Do not print your book dummy through Amazon.
mm-mm.
They will assign you a ISBN number if you don't sign one. You don't want to have an ISBN number associated with your book dummy. So you just, if you get it printed anywhere, get it printed somewhere where they'll just print it and send it to you, and they won't publish it. You don't want it published. So yeah, so this was a little above and beyond, but they had a sale, and I think this cost me like I think $6. It was not expensive. And so I had 3 of them printed. And so then it was just easier for me to do that than to pay for printer ink, pay for, and figure it all out on my own. This is just a lot simpler. And so I did the same thing. My pages are, since I used the cover for my title page, I just threw that in color. And then my pages are all black and white sketches. And you just want to show that you kind of know where the text will fit on the page with your art. I don't think I shaded anything. Everything in here was pretty just black and white line art.
The cool thing about us
Did that
having
one.
printed ones is that, like, if you teach someone how to do this, you have something to show. But yeah, absolutely, I don't ever want anyone to think that they have to print them out like this.
And so I did do color. I did 4 pages in color, but looking back, I don't know, I chose pages, and I didn't plan my dummy very well. This was a really rough, yeah, I don't think I have any pages that are spreads.
And that one you reworked after
So
many times, and
this,
it changed from that too.
yeah, it's not even called this anymore. I did do okay, it was printed through Snapfish. I did do end pages, but I only did single because of who I printed through. They only had room for one end page.
You know, one, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your thought, because this was something
Oh, that
different.
was it. So
Oh.
that's a little excessive. You don't have to do that. You can just print it out on printer paper like Olga did if you're going to a conference. But when you're submitting to an agent, you're going to send them a PDF. You don't have to
PDF.
have a printed version.
Um, one question that I hear often, and I've had a few people ask, they're like, how much does a story change, and how do you get over the fact that your story will change, and where do you stop? My answer to this is, do you want to get traditionally published or not? If you
Yeah.
want to get traditionally published, be okay with the story changing somewhat. You can always say no, and then either they'll pass, or or maybe they'll be like, they'll see your vision, but it's going to change. Just already go in thinking it's going to change. And don't be, and surprising enough, it's usually it's as a nice surprise, that because it's stuff that you didn't think. So you're it brought it up because your story changed quite a bit from
Yeah.
what
It
it
still
was
didn't get picked up.
originally. And so did mine. Well, okay,
But yes.
but the
No, but it
second
changed, yeah.
story is a much better story than the first one that you had.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes. Every version has been an improvement
Yeah.
from the original. And it's just like, I mean, authors do rewrites constantly and edits, and every rewrite is an improvement. So for you as an author illustrator, every new version is going to be an improvement, especially when you're working with an editor at a traditional publishing house.
And
They
an
have
art director.
yeah, they have much more experience than you do. They know what is working in the market. They know what's needed. So they have to keep in mind how, not just your story idea, but they're also thinking of how is this book going to sell? How are we going to get people to buy it? It needs to have certain things in order for it to be successful, and they know what it needs. You don't have that knowledge
I
as an
think it's a
author.
good idea if you're not a person that pushes yourself to try, I mean, to try to do more, then it's good to have someone that will. Like, if you just, everybody pretty much draws something straight on. That's just is the go-to. If you just stop there and you never push any angles, because you are going to need to do that in some book dummies, so that it, depending on the story, but most stories you do want to change angles and have close-ups and have full spreads. If you're not really doing that, then ask someone to push you to do that. Like just try for a scene to be done differently. Don't be afraid to have to redraw it. You're gonna have to redraw it anyway.
Yeah.
So try it. The worst that could happen is that you redraw it and it's horrible. Okay, don't show it to anyone and go back to your original. But at least try it. That falls under the same thing of when someone asks you to rewrite something. At least try it. Nobody has to read that manuscript if it was terrible, but at least you tried a different angle. If someone tells you, yes, can you rewrite this in third person? Don't freak out. Just write it and see what happens.
It might work, it might not.
It might work or it might not. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you mind if I just share these really quick too, and
Go
then I'll
ahead.
be
Oh,
done?
that's right. No, sorry. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
it's fine.
I do want to
Yeah,
see.
even this is the first book that I did for an author. It's very simple. And looking back, yeah, everything is a spread. Everything has 2 pages. Every scene is
But
2
see, we
pages.
learned from that. We learned it.
And
Good.
but I printed, so once the art was finished, I printed it out, and the way I did it was these are glued. are like taped together so that I
Yeah.
could just print them out side by side, cut them, and then I fold them in half and then I tape them together. I think that's what a lot of people do.
That is
Just
a
because it
great
took
idea.
less planning on my part. It was just easier. And then I printed out a little cover and I put it around the book.
So the first question you have here is, do my characters have to look exactly right? I think we covered that as we were talking.
I think so. Yeah, you said no.
Yes, I know. They have to look recognizable. They have to look. Now in your finished pages, yes, you want them to be exactly like. You want to make sure that they want to see that you can carry a character throughout in different poses. So, yeah, in the finished pages, your characters have to look like
Yeah.
the character looks like. In the sketchy ones, pretty close, but they don't have to be like absolutely perfect. No.
Well, my final book looked just like the dummy. Nope.
Nope. we absolutely covered that one. Your final
Said that
book
many times.
will not look like your dummy. It will not.
Yeah.
Expect it to change. This is just a way to communicate your vision. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And this is what's lovely about both industries. So in traditional publishing, you have a whole team working with you. So what you don't know, somebody else knows. What you
Yeah.
don't do, somebody else does. Everybody has their own job and their expertise at that job. And in
Yeah.
self-publishing, you do everything. You have to find someone who does everything, but there's a lot of stuff that is not completely necessary to be exactly like that, because you're self-publishing. If you want to put your title and your copyright in the same page, well, so be it. It's fine. You decide how you want to do it. It's still going to get published because you're self-publishing it. So that is like, there's less rules to self-publishing if you're just going on print on demand and things, but you have to figure it out yourself or pay someone to figure it out for you. But so they both have like their own way of working.
Yeah. And I'd like to say that in self-publishing, you won't be redrawing a lot like you do in like a redoing the story like you do in traditional. But as an illustrator, you probably will be. The author doesn't have to worry about the story changing, but the illustrator,
I think that's fair to say on both
be,
industries that you will be redrawing things.
Yeah.
Unless you get them right the first time. I don't know,
Yeah.
It hasn't happened to me. I don't get things right the first time.
Yeah, that's rare.
All right. No, so we can wrap this one up. I think that's a really good explanation. We probably overly explained what a dummy is.
Yeah. And we covered all this stuff. Yeah, so hopefully this is helpful. If anyone has any questions about what we covered, I am sure we jumped around a lot. So we may have missed something, or maybe something wasn't clear, or I think it was a little too clear.
You can fast forward if it was too much. All right.
Please feel free to ask us questions.
We're pretty good about emailing back and answering with answering questions
on YouTube or social media or whatever.
So send us questions, send us stuff. Check out the community that we formed in Facebook.
Yes, you can also join our Facebook community and ask us questions there. And we do plan to send out a storyboard template with our newsletter. So if you're not signed up for newsletter, you can sign up for that.
Oh yeah, sign up for the newsletter. And there is a contest that we started. I just joined this as a draw challenge that we were going to talk about. The Halloween draw challenge. Yeah. So our mascot, and I know I pronounced that word wrong, but that's how I pronounce it.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Okay, the light bulb.
Yeah.
We'll dress him up for Halloween. That's what I did. A Frankenstein, the bride and the Frankenstein, and you did this cute little pumpkin. He's the light for the pumpkin.
Yeah. So we
get creative.
The contest was you don't have to redraw our art. We were hoping that people would draw the light bulb in their own costume, like figure out how they want to dress him up. And for Halloween for October.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in October. I realize that. Like we're kind of
Well, we started this early.
Yeah.
Start sending, tag
Yeah.
us. The instructions are on Instagram. I think we put them on.
They're on every social
everywhere.
media. Yeah.
Tag us, send us. We'll promote them all on Instagram, on the stories, and all the platforms. Pretty much, we'll be promoting them, and you get your artwork seen.
Yeah, we plan to.
Cool.
If you share it, we plan to share your artwork on our social media. We want to promote. We're trying to help promote other artists. And that was our whole
artists.
Goal. Yeah.
So that's it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're done.
All right. So let's wrap
4 hours later.
Hey, we did it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
See you next time.
So thanks for watching. We hope you found this episode helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Like us and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get notified of our.
I'm not sure where it would be, so there you are.
Great.
I'll be Vanna White.
Okay, bye.
Bye.